Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is right here, everyone. Thank you for joining me for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Okay, this video, this short little chat we're going to have this evening, this might be more applicable. This might be more interesting to people that are still in Scientology, people that are still under the radar for now, people that are starting to maybe peek out from underneath the cult tent into the wide world of the internets. We are going to talk about Scientology canceling two of its most important annual international events and canceling them forever. This isn't something that just happened, but this is something, this answers a question that comes up a lot of times or it's similar to this question of, is there anything anybody could have said to you when you were in Scientology that would have woken you up, caused you to think differently about what you were doing, caused you to question what you were doing? And the first answer I usually give is, no, there isn't. The way Scientologists are set up mentally to kind of inoculate themselves against any criticism or negative information is pretty uniquely powerful. And I myself have said that the evidence the evidence that Scientology is small and shrinking and has been for a couple generations now even when I was in Scientology, the evidence was right in front of my face the entire time. And yet it never actually occurred to me that Scientology was small, that Scientology was shrinking. It's only when I look back on a lot of the things that were right in front of my face with the benefit of hindsight that I go, oh my God, it should be obvious to all Scientologists that Scientology is shrinking and it is small. It should be obvious to all Scientologists that there's only 20 to 30,000 members in the entire world. It should be obvious. And yet all Scientologists, if you ask them, will tell you with a straight face that there are millions of Scientologists in the world. All Scientologists have been being told by David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, for, well, many decades now. Like meaning back in the late 80s, early 90s, David Miscavige was saying there was at least 10 million Scientologists in the world. Guys, the difference between 10 million and 20,000, I'm not good at math, you guys, but it's a lot. Scientologists will tell you with a straight face, there's millions of Scientologists in the world. But yet if you ask them to do some simple math, how many publican staff are at your local org? How many orgs are there in the world? How many Sea Org orgs are there in the world? Do the math. How many Scientologists are there in the world? None of them would be able to give you a figure more than 35,000. Because there are some of these very obvious things that are obvious if you're not in a cult, but when you're in the cult, they're not obvious. Because so many of these things exist, I find it is helpful every now and then to mention in a video some of these obvious things so that these Scientologists who start to stumble onto the internet and watch our videos secretly, they might go, oh my God, you're totally right. This is one of those pieces of information. Even though this particular information might be at least 10 years old. And also memories are short in the cult. If it didn't happen 3 years ago, a large percentage of the population in the cult doesn't remember it at all. So here's what I'm talking about, guys. On Scientology's major international event calendar, there used to be 6 of them. The 2 that have been canceled is the Dianetics anniversary event and Auditors Day. The 2 most important events in Scientology if you think Scientology is about delivering Scientology. Now, some of the things I say would only be true or important to someone that's still in Scientology. Like, I don't really care if Scientology has lost its way organizationally. I don't really care if Scientology no longer makes its money from selling Scientology courses. I don't really care. But Scientologists are supposed to care. And some of my content really is geared to help wake up Scientologists. Okay, so if the Dianetics event and the Auditors Day event were canceled as international events, what are the other 4 events that David Miscavige decided to hold on to, and why? Let's take them in chronological order. January 1st, you say December 31st, but January 1st, the New Year's Eve event. This is a huge event in Scientology. Notice it's not the Christmas event because Scientologists don't believe in heaven or hell or Jesus or God or anything like that. Not a Christmas event. It is a New Year's Eve event. This is an event where David Miscavige gets to make up a bunch of false statistics of everything Scientology accomplished that year and just raise a bunch of money. He kept that one. Okay, fast forward. March, L. Ron Hubbard's birthday event. L. Ron Hubbard was born on March 13th. Every year there is an event to celebrate L. Ron Hubbard's birthday. Well, you can't exactly cancel the event celebrating the birthday of the founder of the cult. Okay, so he holds on to that. They'll usually release some sort of book or item or property dedicated to L. Ron Hubbard, or telling some new part of L. Ron Hubbard's life, and they'll sell that and whatever. Okay, so we keep the New Year's. We've kept the New Year's Eve event. We've kept the L. Ron Hubbard anniversary birthday event. May 9th is when the book Dianetics was published. Dianetics is the book that all of Dianetics and Scientology is based on. That's canceled. Okay, June, July, Scientology holds an event commemorating the maiden voyage of the Free Winds ship. There's only one ship in Scientology these days. You hear about Scientology's Sea Organization and Sea Org members. I was a Sea Org member. The Sea Org has one ship. Most Sea Org members have never been on it. That ship is called the Free Winds. That ship's maiden voyage, I think was 1988. Don't quote me on that. You can fact check me. And every year there's an event on the Free Winds with only high-level Scientologists. Only OT8s are allowed on the ship for this event. And they do like a series of 4 or 5 nights in a row of different events. And over the summer, those events that were held on the ship, the videos of those events are replayed in Scientology organizations around the world. That's called the Summer of Events. And it is also just called the Maiden Voyage Anniversary event. Okay, so we got January, we got March, we got May, we got the summer. Boom, September, mid-September, Auditor's Day. Canceled. Okay, October 7th, the IAS anniversary event. This is David Miscavige's big moneymaker, you guys. The International Association of Scientologists is the membership organization of Scientology. It didn't actually exist under L. Ron Hubbard. It's one of the things that was created after L. Ron Hubbard died. This membership organization is the vehicle that David Miscavige now uses to raise hundreds of millions of dollars for Scientology without having to give anything in return other than a pin and a trophy. See, David Miscavige realized it's quite expensive to sell Scientology auditing and Scientology courses. It requires a lot of infrastructure to deliver Scientology auditing and courses. It requires a lot of staff. It requires a lot of time training those staff. And the money that gets paid to the local organization when a Scientologist is buying auditing or buying courses, there's very little of that money that actually ends up flowing up into David Miscavige's pockets. And I mean that a little figuratively. He doesn't personally pocket the money, but I mean, the money flows up. There are so many redundant levels of Scientology management and even some side organizations like Golden Era Productions or Bridge Publications. There's continental management offices. There's middle management. There's management organizations dedicated to supervising middle management and international management and RTC and CST and all this kind of stuff. It is so much more profitable to David Miscavige to raise money as straight donations to the International Association of Scientologists. It is so much more profitable to him to do that than it is to focus on selling, auditing, and training. Now, I just, it's one of these things that I was still in Scientology. I was still in the Sea organization the first time we didn't hold a major international event for the anniversary of Dianetics. And I remember thinking, like, it was one of the things, like, it should have been a huge deal. It should have been like, this is wrong. It should have been a huge red flag. And I remember like it was banging around in my head for a little bit, like, there's something really weird about this, something really weird about this. But the day-to-day pressures of being a Scientology staff member or being a Scientology SEERG member are such that even things that, pop up momentarily as red flags are just quickly dismissed because you've got way too much to do. You've got way too much that you're supposed to be getting done and that you need to have your attention on. Guys, let me show you Scientology's bridge to total freedom. And again, I have to stress, I don't give a damn about these things, but Scientologists do. And that's kind of the purpose of this video. There's only two aspects of everything Scientology is trying to accomplish: the left side of the bridge and the right side of the bridge. The left side of the bridge, where it says training, that is training Scientology auditors. The right side of the bridge, where it says processing, processing is another word for Scientology auditing. And Scientology auditing is what is done by trained Scientology auditors. Scientology, no matter what you're doing, Dianetics or Scientology, all comes down to auditors, training auditors, and then having auditors audit. There was only 2 of the 6 Scientology events that was dedicated to auditors. That was Auditors Day and the Dianetics event. So the thing about Dianetics is it is much easier. The reason L. Ron Hubbard said Dianetics was so important, even these days where you now have Scientology, is that it is so much easier to sell people Dianetics than it is to sell them Scientology. The name of the Dianetics book is Dianetics: Modern Science of Mental Health. There's nothing spiritual about that book. There's nothing religious-y about that book. The word Scientology doesn't appear anywhere in it. It doesn't talk about past lives. It doesn't talk about Xenu and the Galactic Federation and the volcanoes and the hydrogen bombs. It doesn't talk about thetans and spirits and immortality and reincarnation. That's the Scientology stuff. And so Dianetics was always supposed to be, it was always supposed to be the grassroots campaign that Scientology staff focused on to sell books and bring in brand new people. And by the way, when I say international, an international Scientology event, I mean where the event itself is being held live at either the Ruth Eckert Hall in Clearwater or the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. And Scientology's key international executives are speaking on stage behind a podium to thousands and thousands of Scientologists. This thing, historically, they tried to beam it live through satellite. That was always a terrible failure. So they started pre-recording it and shipping it out on DVDs for the orgs to replay locally. So an international event means it's being put on by international management, and that event is then viewed in every organization. That was always a very big deal. And so Dianetics, on the Dianetics event, what would happen is they would promote how many new Dianetics groups popped up, not just in the US, but actually all over the world. They would give out awards for the #1 Dianetics auditor in the world. It was a huge deal. They started giving out awards for #1 Dianetics auditor in each continent so that there were more awards to compete for. On Auditors Day, you would have this most senior technical person in Scientology called the Senior Case Supervisor International. He's supposed to be Ray Medoff, but I don't think anyone's seen the guy in 15 freaking years. He would be up on stage. He would be handing out Auditor of the Year awards, Case Supervisor of the Year. These events were huge deals, completely canceled. Now, if you're a Scientologist and you're still living inside the cult bubble, you have to in some way ask yourself, now hold on a second. David Miscavige keeps telling us that Scientology is expanding year over year over year, not just highest evers, but exponential growth, 2x, 10x, 20x. How does it make sense that we're getting bigger, but there's less to celebrate? How does that make any gosh darn sense? And how is it that we have, like, honestly, so, okay, it makes sense. Like New Year's Eve, honestly, guys, it's not like Scientologists particularly care about New Year's Eve. I'll tell you where Scientologists would much rather be on New Year's Eve than at their local org having to listen to a 3-hour speech from David Miscavige. They would rather be literally anywhere else. Scientology, if Scientology was like, I think we have too many events on the schedule. It takes a lot of time to prep and do all these events. I think we need to lighten the load. You know, if you had to choose between canceling the New Year Eve event and canceling Auditor's Day, you would definitely cancel New Year's Eve before canceling Auditor's Day. Okay, obviously you're going to keep L. Ron Hubbard's birthday on the schedule. The maiden voyage events. These are the most mind-numbingly boring events. Scientologists do not enjoy the maiden voyage events. The IAS event is actually a very well-liked event by the Scientologists, because Scientologists do like dressing up, and they do like getting fancy, and they do like eating that fancy food. And the IAS events have become about as fancy as it gets. And because it's David Miscavige's big moneymaker, he throws a ton of money and time, attention, and resources into the event production on this thing. And it is invariably a giant, spicy, sexy event. And it's the one you're most likely to see Tom Cruise at. But guys, honestly, again, this is more of a special interest video for people still inside Scientology. But I do think it's also interesting, just to document for the record, that there are always, when you look for them, signposts that indicate Scientology is very small and shrinking very rapidly. And those signposts have been there for a very long time. The fact that Scientology no longer celebrates Auditor's Day and no longer celebrates the anniversary of Dianetics are two huge indicators that have been there for a while. And I think it's just worth calling it out. All right, guys, a short one on this one, because I got 2 or 3 more videos I'm going to squeeze in before the end of the day. I'm on a real tear today. Be Free says Scientology keeps their workers running around in fear so they can't stop and think. Run from the cult. Abigail says, if I'm understanding right, Aaron is saying that Scientologists have lost all memories of anything before COVID. Kind of. Nero James, billion-year SP, that tiny little fraud probably kept the highest money-making events. I think you have absolutely nailed it on the head. Oh, hit the nail right on the head. But the other thing, you could always turn any event into a money-making event. Like, you really could. I think there are things about those events that make David Miscavige deeply uncomfortable, which is, it's hard to highlight the success of auditors when every 15 years you cancel the certificates of all the auditors. I mean, I don't know. I can think of reasons why David Miscavige would cancel the events. I can think of reasons that don't make sense for him to cancel these events. The fact is, he did. And the fact is, if Scientology is expanding and growing, and if there's more and more auditors training than ever, and if orgs are bigger than ever, and if new groups are opening than ever, those types of expansion have always historically been done on the backs of auditors. Who opens missions? Who opens successful missions? Usually trained Class 6 auditors. Oopsie, David Miscavige canceled the Class 6 auditor course. The Class 6 auditor course in Scientology is called the St. Hill Special Briefing Course. You cannot do that course in Scientology right now. It doesn't exist. It just doesn't. And it's hard to every year put on an event about Dianetics, when Dianetics is what happens at the lowest level, introductory levels of the bridge, and hardly anyone's getting into Scientology. A few people dribble in here and there, but it's very hard to produce that event every year when you're trying to celebrate something that is practically non-existent. And I do believe that is why the event was canceled. We could say it's because it doesn't make money, but you can always figure out how to make an event make money. Even if you just turned the Dianetics event into an IAS fundraising event, you could figure it out. I think it actually comes down to the fact that no one is walking into these Scientology organizations, and that even includes through the Dianetics intro route. I remember when I was still in, they re-released the Hubbard Dianetics seminar course. It's where you study the book, and then there's how-to videos on how to audit, and it was supposed to be the spearhead of the new Dianetics boom. This thing never materialized. It fizzled out almost just as fast as it started. So I think both of these things are contributing factors to why the event has been canceled. Matt Elliott, MAA, SPTV. There was like maybe 20 public at the Ideal Org in Cambridge for the Dianetics event. That's right. So what was canceled, the Dianetics event was canceled as an international event. So what they did instead is they kicked it back down to the orgs, and they just said, just hold a local event. And so but see, and so, you know, an actual Scientologist might go, oh, Aaron, you're spreading false information. We celebrated the Dianetics event at our local org. And you go, yes, but it used to be a major international event for over 20 years. And I mean major international event. The whole time I was at Flag, every May 9th event was a huge deal. David Miscavige would personally host this thing. It was a big deal. If it was a big deal 25 years ago, and Scientology is 100x bigger now, according to David Miscavige, and it's not a big deal now, I think we know why. Okay. Tracy in Tulsa. So many things are too close. Yes. Tracy in Tulsa. He was so stupid to lose the Braille Scape money. Yeah. Philosophy. Wow, that's a pretty big deal to cancel these events. It is a sign of a failing organization. Absolutely. Matt Elliott. Do they have to pay to go to the Free Winds event? They have to pay for the travel. They have to pay for the accommodations. They have to pay for the food. And then one of the reasons David Miscavige likes to keep the Maiden Voyage event is because once you get those high-level Scientologists on the ship, they cannot escape. The fundraisers, the IAS fundraisers, it's like, for them, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. And it's the highest level Scientologists that have to continue to demonstrate their allegiance to David Miscavige and his programs. And one of the programs David Miscavige pushes more than anything else is the IAS. And on that, for that, I said there's like 4 or 5 nights of events during the Maiden Voyage. And I think it is probably the final night, the ultimate night, is specifically dedicated to the IAS. So not only do you have to pay to travel and to be there and to eat, but you're paying in other ways as well. Dragon Tears for me. Hashtag it's Aaron's fault, and that is a great thing. Good to see you, Dragon Tears. Matt Elliott says, glad to still be here. Glad to still have you here, Matt. All right, guys, that is it for now. Stay tuned. Much more to come tonight. Hit that like button if you don't mind. Check that subscribe button. It might not be hit yet. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe